Hey everybody, this is Ryan Deal with 605 Sports again, joined as always by John Akre with 605 Sports to talk some high school football playoffs. We got the semifinals coming at you this Friday, and then the All Nations championship games will take place down in Vermillion. Uh, John, we should also first mention the Pick'em Challenge for 605sports.com. Go ahead, get out of the way. You're leading me right now. Uh, how did that happen?
I just kind of think I know ball. I don't, obviously we got a long way to go yet. But sitting in third place right now, I feel pretty good about where I stand.
There you go. See how these next couple rounds finish off and everything. All right, let's talk some 11 AAA. In the semifinals, we have Harrisburg against Brandon Valley, Sioux Falls Jefferson against Sioux Falls Lincoln. Obviously, some rematches from earlier in the season. Like we've talked, Brandon Valley and Sioux Falls Lincoln kind of felt like they're on a collision course to play in the dome again, but like I always say in this class, you just never know what's gonna happen with some of these matchups because you know each other so well. What really stands out to you in 11 AAA?
Well, I like you said too, is just Brandon Valley, Lincoln seem like kind of heavy favorites right now in that class, but I think Jefferson has certainly started making a case for themselves, especially in this postseason now. And Lincoln, if I'm not mistaken, kind of had a close one there early on with Rapid City Central before they sort of ran away with it there in the later stages of the game. But and Harrisburg as well, the number 5 seed. They kind of made a statement a little bit against O'Gorman last week, holding them to 3 points defensively. And then obviously these bigger classes, you're going to have a lot of rematches from the regular season. And so I think that'll be interesting to see how sort of the sequels pan out in both regards there.
Yeah, I kind of got my eye on the Harrisburg Tigers. Lost to O'Gorman earlier in the season, got their revenge last week, picking up that win to advance to the semis. So we'll see how it goes for the Tigers facing obviously a quality opponent with Brandon Valley. So that'll be a kind of an intriguing one to keep an eye on. 11 AA. Pierre has ruled this class the last several years. Made it to the Dome again last year. Ultimately, fell short to Watertown in the state championship. Again, similar kind of vibe with this class. A lot of these teams lock horns. During the season, and then they match up again in the postseason and everything. What really stands out to you with these matchups?
Well, again, we kind of mentioned it last week is just class 11 AA. You can just pick a name out of a hat and you could make a case for them, being the team hosting the trophy in the Dakota Dome. But I think this could be an intriguing semifinals for this class. I think both teams or both matchups were, just 6 points separated between the two in the regular season. Yankton beating Sturgis 27-21 earlier this year, and then Huron beating Pierre 13-7. And especially with that Huron Pierre game, I think that one's the most intriguing of the two, just with what Pierre's been able to build over the last decade. And they're trying to, for the first time in 7 and 8 years now, they're not the ones coming in as champions, with Watertown winning it last year. So I think they play with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder and sort of that, uh, we don't have anything to really lose necessarily. And then Huron's just been a really cool story to follow this season. They had such a tough schedule earlier in the year, and they come into the playoffs as the number 2 seed. Um, After losing to Brookings in the last week of the season, they come out and beat them 7-2, which is quite the baseball score. But they get the W, and I mean I'm kind of keeping my eye on that one for sure as far as who comes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, and like we all know, Pierce just they've been at the top of that class for several years, and that's always the storyline with that class to see if the Governors will get back to the dome, and obviously these teams in this class is they want to knock them off. I mean, let's be honest, so certainly Huron hosting the Governors in that semifinal one will be interesting to see how that plays out. 11A, same kind of a story there. Sioux Falls Christian, they clearly separated themselves from the rest of the field in this class. during the season, and that continued, last week in the quarterfinals and everything. Sioux Falls Christian will play West Central, and then the Rapids will face Lennox. Again, some rematches from the regular season. That Lennox Del Rapids one should be kind of interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I mean that's just a few short weeks ago those teams were on the same field together, and now they'll do battle again. I think it'll certainly be a little bit more closer of a matchup. It's one thing to beat a good team, twice in a season. It's another to do it in the DAC-12. I think that's certainly the biggest headline is obviously all four of these teams in the DAC-12 and are the final four teams in the class. We're still waiting to see if anybody can really compete with Sioux Falls Christian. I mean, they've for the most part dominated this season. I don't know if they've played a game closer than double digits, and West Central is going to have a certain chip on their shoulder as well. They lost 24-0 in that season opener to the Chargers. But I mean, like we mentioned, it's just interesting to see how these games are going to play out in 11A. DAC-12 opponents, you just expect them to be some good football.
Yeah, yeah. Sioux Falls Christian, again, they've kind of risen to the top in that class. So we'll see if they can finish the job. Fell short in last year's state championship to Lennox. Still looking for that first 11A championship. So we'll see if the Chargers can finish the job this year. 11B, unfamiliar, I guess, is kind of the word to use for these semifinal games. We have Dual and Elk Point Jefferson, and Clark Willow Lake and St. Thomas More do not face off in the regular season. That's going to add a fun layer to these semifinals, won't it?
Yeah, I mean they've obviously had some common opponents between the two, but for the most part, these teams really don't. There's no correlation or anything you can make to really justify, oh, this team should be, certainly a heavy favorite or anything like that. I think for specifically those Northeast teams with Dual and Clark Willow Lake, you kind of get a little bit of a measuring stick when it comes to that head-to-head game they had. It was 20-14 in Dual. Clark Willow Lake scored a touchdown late to take that one. So certainly, I mean, competitive teams. They're all four should give a two really good semifinal matchups. The one that's really intriguing to me is Clark Willow Lake and St. Thomas More. That game will be out west in Rapid City. That's the two best scoring defenses in 11B football. St. Thomas More at less than 4 points per game allowed this season on defense, and then Clark Willow Lake similar at 8 points per game. And so that one, I mean, that could just kind of come down to situational football and whoever ends up breaking through a little more than the other one, I guess. But and then obviously with Dual and EPJ, Huskies are sort of a juggernaut, and they have been for a couple of years now, building that program up or down south there. And Dual, I think, is just kind of a fascinating team when you kind of put into account that their quarterback is a junior, their starting running back's a junior, and I mean those two are the focal points of that offense. So I think that could give some interesting matchups for 11B.
Yeah. And we'll see. St. Thomas More, they've been to the Dome 6 times in their history. Have not been able to finish the job and win a state championship. So we'll see if they can get past the Cyclones and make it to the Dome again. But going to be certainly a tough one in the semifinals for the Cavaliers. 9AA. The storyline here is Hamlin against Freeman Marion Freeman Academy, and Parkston versus Elkton Lake Benton. Same four teams were in this spot last year in the semifinals, but there's different matchups this year. Last year, Hamlin ended up beating Parkston in the state championship. So fun to see these teams make it back to this point again. 9AA, as we've talked throughout the years, is, in my opinion, the most competitive 9-man class. And if you make it to this stage, you've obviously done something right, and then you're well coached, well-oiled machine team and everything. What really stands out to you in 9AA?
And if I'm not mistaken, last year it was Parkston and Hamlin that were hosting the semis.
Mhm.
It's different matchups, but obviously now Hamlin's going on the road to Freeman, Parkson's going on the road to Elkton Lake Benton. But I think just that 2 versus 3 with the Elks and Trojans, I'll give a little bit of flowers to the hometown team, Parkston. The program that they built year in and year out, you just can't really say enough about. It's gone on for now a half decade that they've reached the semifinals every year. And this is a rematch of a semifinal game from 2022 in Elkton. The Parkston ended up winning that one 36-8. Obviously, vastly different teams now compared to back then, but just I think those two programs they'll certainly put on a show Friday in Elkton. I'll be over there covering that one as well for 605 Sports, and you'll be obviously over in the Freeman game that we'll touch on as well.
Yeah. This class to me, just through the years when it gets to this point in the semifinals, it never fails to deliver, just some great games, games that go down to the wire. So it'll be another fun semifinal Friday. I fully anticipate for these matchups. 9A. Now this one we do have some rematches from the regular season. Phillip against Wall, Howard against Alcester Hudson. But ironically, not only rematches, but they also played same weeks. The season opener and everything. Wall beat Phillip 54-6, and then Alcester Hudson beat Howard 40-29. So I guess with this class, the familiarity is there. How much intrigue is that going to bring to these matchups?
Well, certainly would imagine, with Howard losing that early season game to Alcester, Phillip losing early to Wall, you'd imagine they're going to come in with a little extra fire. I mean, obviously, already added that it's the semifinals, but just that, and then you can't really gauge teams on August football compared to what it is now in November. Two completely different matchups, in my opinion, when it comes to rematches and stuff like that. Um, and especially when you look at like Phillip and Wall and just that West River matchup in itself is just, I mean, Wall's given up 6 total points in its last 8 games. I mean, they have really looked like a team just on a mission for a state title. Howard, I feel like they've kind of just gone under the radar a little bit. And, they upset Warner, number 2 Warner last week, 28-21. Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of forget they're the defending state champs and maybe don't give them enough credit there. But they played fairly close with Alcester early in the year, and that was kind of the game that really some people may have taken them out of their championship bubble. But I do think these rematches should certainly bring a little bit more closer contest.
Yeah. I remember earlier in the season, I talked to Howard coach Pat Rummel after a game, and he kind of joked about when they lost to Alcester Hudson. He just said tongue in cheek, people kind of forgot about us, like kind of joked, we still play football, so certainly don't want to count out the defending state champs, and there's one of those teams. Just there's going to be a tough out for anybody, so certainly that'll be a fun one to keep an eye on there. Howard and Alcester Hudson in the semifinals for 9A. 9B. The Rapid St. Mary's and Avon, like we've talked a couple times throughout the year, just to kind of separate themselves from the pack, it feels like, and they continued their winning ways last week in the quarters, picking up some easy wins. Fulton, which knocked off the defending state champs, Solely Buttes. They will play at Rapid St. Mary's. And then we've got Coleman Egan, kind of a team that you can make the argument kind of came out of nowhere a little bit in 9B. This year they will play at Avon. How do you see 9B kind of shaping up here in the semifinals?
Well, yeah, I think the one that kind of stands out is Coleman Egan. I mean, that's a team started out 0-3. They won 7 straight games after, and now they're in the state semis. And they're a fairly young team too. You look at their roster, 5 seniors, 2 juniors. So it's a pretty heavy underclassed team, or underclassmen led team, I should say. But obviously, those seniors they got are just they're leaders. I think the one that really stands out is Hayden Pearson, their running back. He had 3 touchdowns, I believe, against Harriet Selby last week in the game that I covered. And I did have a story put out on the Hawks Coleman Egan earlier in the week. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure to check that out on our website. But yeah, like we mentioned, I mean, Del Rapids, St. Mary, Avon, it's two teams that haven't met yet, but it feels like they have a real good shot to next week in the championship if things kind of hold. But I don't think Falkton or Coleman Egan are going to be any slouch by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nugget that we've kind of dropped throughout the year about 9B is there's been no repeat champ since '03 and '04 when Kimball did it. So that trend will continue this year with Sully Buttes losing last week. So now we're going to have a new champ, I guess, this year for 9B. We should also mention the All Nations Football Championship games are Friday in Vermilion. We will have coverage of those games. 9B, White River against McLaughlin, and 9A, Todd County against Winnebago. Winner and McLaughlin played earlier this year, 24-22. McLaughlin won that one down in White River, and then Winnebago beat Todd County earlier in the season, 38-8. And Winnebago lost in last season's 9A championship to Pine Ridge in just a crazy double overtime game. So, Winnebago wants to finish the job there and everything. So, all righty, there's all your classes. Make sure to follow 605 Sports for all your coverage of all these games over the next couple weeks and everything. Thanks, John. We'll talk next week.
Yep.